When you are poor, your financial woes, hardships, um, problems always are your fault. It's never there's some sort of weird system in place that makes every single financial decision you make possibly a costly decision. Poor people, when they smoke to relieve anxiety from crippling depression, they're blamed for that. When they drink because crippling, they have crippling depression, they're blamed for that. Um, and truth be told, those are terrible habits and they're costly. But people without a lot of money just want some kind of relief from their mental woes. And people with little empathy cannot even see that that's why they're doing these very destructive things. They're trying to soothe themselves like a baby soothes itself with a pacifier from the anxiety. And who wouldn't have anxiety? Um, I vaped for a couple years on and off, but I had to stop. But I do occasionally I do pick up a vape because the depression from this society can be so overwhelming sometimes. You need some kind of relief, and I don't do drugs. Some people choose drugs, legal and illegal, prescription and non prescription, to get their relief. And that's why a lot of people do drugs. A lot of people think that, oh, it's just, they're just bad people. No, they're not always bad people. A lot of people are just so depressed and they don't understand that they're living a life that they don't even want to live. Working long hours, working for somebody else, doing a job you hate. All of these things lead to bad habits and bad financial planning. So when poor people have bad financial planning, it's always they get roasted into ashes. Understandable. I myself had to be accountable. My credit score was absolute dog shit, 580. It's now 800, and it took me many years. I didn't take a course. I didn't, pay anybody. I just decided to stop spending, um, you know, stop spending any money that I couldn't afford, and really pay attention to my finances and pay off my credit cards on time and with very little to no interest. But it took a lot of effort. It took a tremendous amount of effort. And there was one time where I was working two jobs and I did that for a year. I don't understand how people work two jobs for extensive amounts of time. I really got to give them props, but it really is sad that people have to give so much of their time, energy, and emotional um, labor, you know, to these corporations that don't give a fuck about them. And when it comes to spending, let's talk about corporate spending. Corporations are notoriously terrible at spending money, mismanaging money, making bad calculations, bad speculations. Um, there's a couple examples, big names that have failed: Sears, Radio Shack. Um, it's a lot of food places that have failed, clothing retail stores. Not so many supermarkets, but a lot of corporations have failed in the past because they made bad financial decisions. They had bad management. And guess who pays? They lay people off left, right, and center. Hudson Bay Company filing for bankruptcy. I don't know what chapter, but apparently there's multiple chapters of bankruptcy, and companies keep filing. And the interesting thing is, I'm sure the corporate talking heads that run these companies into the ground all these rich people running these companies into the ground, they probably thought they were doing a good job. They saw the negatives on the account, but they still get paid doing a terrible shit show of a job and running the company into the ground. They have CEO and CFO of this and that person, and they're doing a terrible job. And this is not just corporations, economies, okay? The government also mismanages and squanders ex- staggering amounts of money. Instead of spending money on education and keeping your population semi-literate, some people can't even some people barely can do math, can't do basic math, can't barely can read, and zero financial literacy. You're sending money to other countries. You're spending money on endless military endeavors. It's insane how governments, corporations, or cities can't balance a fucking budget to save their lives. We don't understand. You have all these rich people, you have the top economists at your disposal, but you can't balance the fucking budget to save your life. Can't figure it out. Gonna have a deficit again. We have entire and countries, Canada and United States, run just deficits for the rest of their lives. Everybody has a deficit. We have countries in Europe deficit, African countries deficit. It's like the entire world is full of people that spend too much money and mismanage things so badly. And I don't know. I just think that the way the world is run is so weird. And I think humans are especially prone to nitpicking easy targets. It's easy to nitpick that person who spent their last $2 on a coffee. They just wanted a hot coffee. They just want to feel normal. They just want something to help them feel better, you know? And you have corporations, people, millionaires and billionaires who completely wipe out entire people's, entire towns, jobs, and they don't get that much flack. I'll give you another example. Um, there's a guy in 2007, 2008. Well, it started in 2006. They had this widespread speculation of the housing bubble where people made they made all kinds of poor financial decisions that was going to crash the economy in 2008. All those people, they don't get as much flack as somebody who spent their last $2, you know, buying a lottery ticket, buying a coffee. Why is that? There's an entire guy, Madoff, thank God he died, that ruined pretty much single handedly with his terrible, atrocious financial cooking of the books and Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is a financial mismanagement of the worst kind. And that person does not get as much flack. In fact, there are documentaries which pretty much glorify him. And it's like there's this disconnect. When you're a poor person, you're a terrible person for not taking your last two pennies and trying to make those two pennies into $100 somehow, and rubbing those two pennies together real hard and making $100 out of it, and just spending 12 hours a day shining shoes and boots and whatever to make, a way for yourself. Now, nobody has a problem with working hard. Everybody works hard. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people work hard. But I don't think you should work that hard where you work two, three, four jobs and maybe you might be able to pay rent and get some food. That's insane. And that's why I get so triggered when people talk about the financial mismanagement of poor people. I myself had to work so hard to become financially literate, having a credit score from 580 to over 800. with just logic, and being consistent and paying all my bills and trying not to spend outside of a outside of something I can manage. For me, I live off credit cards sometimes. You know why? Because everybody does. You know why? Because you never get enough money to not live outside of credit cards, you know? But the thing is, the key is to pay it off within a week or less. Pay it off immediately if you can. You know, it's just a temporary thing and you don't use it. You use it pretty much as a temporary debit card. You're just transferring the money. But people don't see it as that. They see it as an endless, bottomless um, amount of free money that you don't ever have to pay back, but you do. But, anyways, I just want to talk about I'm sick and tired of poor people getting shitted on for not taking them two last little pennies and, making $100 out of it somehow. Just magically do that.